Reverend Dr. Mazie, who has serious concern about the welfare of the people, and he has been doing his best for some years ago. Are we going to pass a corrupt banknote as a legacy to our future generations? Never should we do so, I feel. God's word says, "Let no one seek his own, but each one the other's well-being." And all men, 18, sang a song like this: "It's better to give than, but greed and selfishness will have no attitude of giving, and perhaps will never have contentment. Contentment comes not from greater wealth, but from fewer want. We have so much to gain by dropping corruption. Corruption weakens and blinds people and nations. If Nagas drop corruption and stay faithful, a wider door will be open to do the fruitful, progressive, and hopeful deeds for the people. If we become so, not only, but even the world will see what a faithful and an uncorrupted person can do good for the nations with what good. And if we remain uncorrupted, I do believe that Naga problem will become much smaller and lighter, and could be solved much more easily. It is my belief that you are the persons in whom marvelous and with which you'll be able to hammer out the best for the nation by exchanging.
We are going to observe the time to take few minutes and share. India became an independent nation. Nagas felt that they too wanted to be a nation. So some of our forefathers, our parents, what they did was they felt God was leading them to start a nation. And what they did was, when they started the Naga movement, as you all know, at the beginning, our story was very clean and very pure. It was just and it was right. It was selfless and it was God honoring. So, to represent the beginning of the Naga movement. And then, after some time, in 1963, a few educated Nagas, they wanted to give up the movement of the Naga freedom struggle and instead settled for the statehood under India, much lower and smaller than to be a sovereign nation. And the majority of the Nagas was a better deal, the statehood. So most of our people, the Nagas, jumped into the Naga boat. So that was how the statehood was formed, in opposition to the movement of the Nagas. Then what happened was, money became like an object for us to worship and for our survival. And what happened was, we see the Naga Hoho, which was a good institution and still a good institution. But because of the love of money, many a time, they have compromised. And instead of being and right, standing upright for the tribes, the various tribes, they sold themselves to become an item in the pockets of the politicians and factional leaders. So I think that way, as well as we can think of even the NSF, which was or is a good body, a good organization. But still, what happened was, instead of fighting for the students for whom they were supposed to exist, for example, we have the problems of proxy teachers, numbering more than 68%, and the school system in this area. But instead of addressing the needs of the students, going after money or going after some position, wanting to use the student organization as a launching pad into state politics. So this is how the older generation, but even the younger generation, have gone the wrong way. And then through the influence of money, the politicians have even corrupted the village level, the village councils. Instead of really putting the first priority for the needs of the villages, they think about, what can I get if I become a chairman? What can I get, or what can my children get if I follow after the police? Maybe some money, maybe employment for my children, or maybe if I'm the leader in the village, if I can put together a village function, maybe the politicians can be invited as chief guests, and they can donate money to us. So this has, even at the grassroots level, our village systems, I believe, has been corrupted. So that is the first part of our skit. And then next, I would like to request our speakers, the first batch of our speakers, to come forward and take your seat here.
I want to begin my sharing this morning by thanking our brother, Reverend Dr. Mazie, for arranging a moment like this, where we can come together and listen to each other. Few things that has been there in my mind, still in the working process, not refined, but I hope it will make sense to the leaders that are here this morning, so that we can learn from each other and also learn to listen from each other. I would like to talk about the future church, projecting what church will be like. And when we try to talk about something that is future and project something that we cannot really get hold of it in the present, it is a difficult task. But I want to begin this way. The church in Nagaland is just 1 century and a little more than 4 decades old, short of 1,805 years compared to the global church. This comparison is just to show that the church in Nagaland is at her infant stage. But within this short span of Christianity in Nagaland, the church has gone through tremendous growth, which is perhaps unprecedented in Christian history. We hear of the first converts being chased out of their homes and villages, their properties destroyed, ties with their families, homes, and villages were severed. But the life after death message became more convincing when the missionaries would talk about that message through the life and work of Jesus Christ. The church, as we look at today, we must always be future-oriented as Christianity is. However, that what projects the future in Christianity is the present. That is to say, the future is invalid without the present. How we maximize the present is important for the future church. We can project the future church taking into consideration the now generation. We must listen to them by way of providing leadership role in strategic position. The attitude of, quote, not yet now, unquote, or, quote, not your time now, unquote, will kill the future church. The present church must learn to do church their way, the now generation, and not shove them out. Provide space and create space. Leadership position for the now generation is important. To ignore this fact is to suffocate the future church. The church, as we know of in the past, and the church as we are today, are different. The church has come a long way. The church will continue to evolve, and as it goes, the church as we see today will not be the same in 50 years. The elaborate buildings we see today will disappear and evolve into another new structure, fit into the new architectural style of the day we cannot imagine now. The only thing that we will see, in my assumption, in the new physical structure, as I would imagine, will be the cross standing on its new structure. Apart from that, everything will change. The seating arrangement will change. The interior design will change. Yet, at the back of all the elaborate, we only hope to see the cross of Christ at the back of the pulpit. This will remind us that we are in the house of the Lord, but the church will always be the church, even centuries to come, and it will be so if the Lord tarries. The church which we now know will change, knowing that this change is bound to happen or to take place. We have to cast ourselves. The church will become more ecumenical in nature. The denominational line will become thinner. People will not care so much about denomination. They will only be concerned about doing the church right, reaching out to the unreached, and staying true to the word. The independent nature of the church will become more prominent. This will be so because people will be more concerned about the functionality of the
Nagaland, or the Naga people, we were divided into two major camps, so to speak. Even though the majority of the people, for survival purposes, they became part of the state. People, a few, wanted to carry on the Naga movement. And they continued the structure or the organization of Naga national movement. So what happened was the NNC, a few started to carry on the movement, the vision. And that is initially led by Piso, and then after some time, led by Adino. And within the camps of the NNC, because they were not happy with each other's leadership, we started having several groups. So as you see, all of them look alike in terms of what they believe in, what they fight, but we have so many groups. And the question for you is, which one is right? Which one would you go for? Are we doing the right thing? If we want to have Christ as our leader, are we doing the right thing? So you can look at and see and decide for yourself.
I'll share about nation building, Naga nation building. First, positive. Nagas have a vintage history of very high quality with strongly documented backgrounds inherited. And we're grateful to our pioneers and forefathers for this decent movement. It is easy, but worth pursuing, moving forward. We have made some achievements already. We are already better placed and better recognized than many other people. For all that has been, today we are engulfed and weakened by divisions, mistrusts, corruptions, and whatnot. These are our predicaments and dilemmas as fallible and imperfect human beings. Many things have gone wrong, but not everything. Let's learn lessons from our past mistakes and begin to build on what's still intact. We have many things in common still. Focus on them. A common journey, a common future, and we're all in the same bus, in the same boat. Let our difficulties and challenges propel us, enable us to grow, and push us forward for better things ahead. If we are not out of issues, becoming skeptics with negative mindsets and distractions, when there will be more divisions and splits, more organizations, more blames and condemnations of one another, more confusions, and more messy and messy situations, all becoming victims and falling into escapism. Third, guidance oriented. We are not blind travelers or sojourners like refugees and migrants, randomly responding to all kinds of changes and challenges as we wish, emotionally, selfishly, or ego-driven. There are certain realities or truths which prevail. We have a point of reference. The great world historian Arnold Toynbee said, all of history can be written in a little formula of two simple words: challenge and response. There are many challenges. Let's respond well, helping one another. The abiding reality is God, and His order always comes through the moments and circumstances, step by step, day by day. God is in full control. He's on the throne. He reigns. We need to gain our perspective. Nagas today need introspection and retrospection and regain our composure and stand once again. Let us be bold and courageous. Let us be the conscience of our society. Conclusion. The kind of food our minds devour determine the kind of person we become, said John Stott, the great church leader. What are we feeding on? What are the food we are consuming through the media, through our organizations, through our challenges, through our thinking? Are we devouring only negative, destructive, damaging, feeding on those type of food, or something meaningful, significant, and lasting? Think tank meeting today, whatever we deliberate upon, whatever we attempt to do, must be transformative and transformational, and not conform to the world. Through this think tank meeting, let us all as advocates and champions of what is good in polity and in politics. I'm really grateful once again to Mazie and Nakhro. Well done. Congratulations. History is going somewhere, so also the Nagas.
At the outset, I'll just briefly read through, as and when required, I'll put a complimentary. The evolution of the Naga polity is indeed immortal and interesting. An observation it can be broadly divided into two distinct phases: pre-gospel and the post-gospel era. However, with the advent of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Naga drastically changed. We are all aware about the impact of becoming Christians in our socio-economic and the political spheres. Christianity ushered in education and awareness of the outside world and our rise to existence. The political state of affairs has direct impact on our economy and society. Political consciousness and the need to survive a world confronted by an alien population that could easily engulf us give birth to the need of the Naga to be independent. This perhaps is the main issue that resulted in the birth of the Naga political quest, political struggle. The Naga political struggle and the quest for freedom has come a long way. Because of lack of time, I do not wish to dwell on the great detail on how our struggle has evolved and metamorphosed into this stage. However, in a nutshell, an appreciation and respect is rendered to A.J. Pizo, the father of the Naga movement, and all the brave patriots who have sacrificed their life until date. Currently, Mr. Isaac Su, Mr. T. Muiva, leaders of the NSM-IM for being able to project the Naga issue and making a major breakthrough with the government of India, hopefully to bring something concrete and positive. Appreciation and respect is rendered to Mr. Kaplan, the leader of the NSM Kiev, who has cleansed a peace agreement with the government of Myanmar. The Naga dreams, with most Naga passionately cherished daily, see many upheavals. There has been times when hopes soar high and plummet to nothing, so much so that despair has crept in. Many feel that the adversary is too strong. However, for the very many, Naga dream is too precious to relinquish, since the struggle has been extremely costly and long. Today, once again, hopes are high, and there exist enough skeptics who think nothing tangible will come out. The purpose of this paper is not to dwell too much on the politics, but to focus our attention to the divine intervention and the hand of God in preserving the Naga people. I strongly believe that a strong nation, Naga is going to be a strong nation. The advance of the gospel to the Naga people is interesting. A mission called Sun Mission was made. The intent of the Sun Mission was to establish a base and find a road to China to evangelize China. They call it Golden Gate. Many sincere attempts have been made to achieve this mission, like Nathan Brown. However, it was not fruitful. Much to disappointment and sacrifice made. Sometimes God works in a mysterious way. It is somewhat similar to the Macedonian call in the Bible, where the disappointments, events, or things, somehow the failure made the gospel to be made available to the Nagas. Many of us are familiar about how God used Dr. Clark to bring the gospel to the Naga people. The British thought it was futile to present the gospel to the Nagas. In fact, it is documented that British do not desire to leave the Naga area as a buffer zone between India and Burma. The policy of the British was, let the Nagas destroy by themselves. If we carefully observe, and what does it mean? It is obvious that even the Christian mission point of view, China wasn't important, not the Nagas. The world of the worlds could care less for us, and we are busy today, we are busy ourselves head hunting, creating a fear psychosis to our outside world. And all the odds were against us, but God in His divine intervention made it possible, and all odds for the gospel of His saving grace reached us. It is indeed an amazing grace. My research paper has found that from the 60 AD, the time when Paul has wrote Acts chapter 16, verse 26, 27, 28, to Dr. Clark entry, the year was 1872. History, God made the history of the Naga as a community, as a people. But from 1972 to up to today, we have got only 143 years civilization period. And you'll be surprised, or I was surprised. I was talking to seriously one of the most competent journalists, you see, Mr. D.K. We were more than 1,000 civilization. Chinese were more than 2,000 civilization. You are less than 100 civilization. But you are more than 2,000 civilization. That has stopped me. Who has done this? If we forget this fact, all our objective will go wrong. Christ in us. Christ who intervened to the Naga people. Not the tribe, nor the organization, nor something. But if we can identify and admit this is the civilization God is going to take care. That is what I want to see. Even if it's your Bible verses I've quoted here, I will not read it out. But I'll pass on to the chairman my note. So looking at all these things, if we look the nation around us, India, China, Myanmar, who are great and big nations, we are dwarf, we are tiny, but both Indians and Chinese were thousands of years of civilization, whereas we are wild tribe in head hunting, but with the Nagas we can boast nothing but the goodness and the grace of God. That is what we can boast in. This year we talk about uniqueness of the Nagas. We are talking so much of the uniqueness of the Nagas. But I believe the uniqueness of Nagas radiates from the unique love of the Nagas and love of God to the Nagas. Perhaps we focus too much, harping on our rights. I feel sometimes tremble and scarce. However, deserving a legitimate right, those we naturally, it never translates to justice. It is evident from the most abused, undermined people in the world, undisputed people deserving their rights to be heard by the world, the native Red Indians, the Adivasis of India, the Aborigines scattered in the whole world, to mention few. We live in a world where might is right. The powerful and mighty nation dictate politics. In this contest of might and power, Naga do not stand a fair chance at all to be victorious. However, God is able. He can change dynamics of the political equation. God is able. And He can change the dynamics of political equation. And the interest of the nation will tilt the balance into our favor. I believe we can give a serious thought on this. Today, Naga boasts of itself as a predominant Christian nation. True, I'm happy, I'm proud of it. Today, 90% Christian, perhaps we are most of the highest percentile Christian population in the world, which is also unique. Naga is unique, and so many uniques for the Nagas. But all is not well, and sadly, we are not showing a good example as a Christian. When our polity is not well, then even socio-economic aspects suffer. Development makes a back seat, corruption rife, permeating all aspects of the society. He has shown us in the skit how the corruption has entered, captured so many people. We have definitely gone wrong somewhere. Jesus doesn't seem to ring in our land. We need obviously seriously ponder and retrospect rather than pointing fingers. Why we point fingers? The thing will start from our hearts. I believe our political expression cannot be diverse from the grand plan of God. In adhering political quest hints, knowing adhering to God's design, and I believe our land is perished because of this. Now, system of the world and the limitation governing models, communism theoretically is good, but this is completely not workable. Democracy is good, but true. But what about we see in our Nagaland? We know that in election, Nagaland, money, power...
I am very glad Mr. Mazie is very strict with time, and I am fonder with writing than speaking. Therefore, I will share my time with two of my invitees, with your permission, Mr. Lohe and Mr. Kevishilwe.
Struggle for freedom is concerned. But because of the failure of Piso to publicly denounce the Shillong Accord. The IM said, because of this, we are going to come out and we are going to do things in a different way. So what IM did was, in reaction to the failures of the NNCN, they started a new movement based on a new political ideology, namely socialism. And from this, we have given birth to some other smaller groups. You see, they have different ideology in terms of their politics. But these groups also, like the NNC groups, look very similar. You decide for yourself which is the right thing for us, for the Naga people. And lately, we have been talking a lot about IM again. It is negotiating an agreement, hoping that the agreement will provide a shared sovereignty. And then, of course, you see that the Naga as well as the other groups are hoping right now, if we can follow this route, maybe our future will be better off. Is this where the Naga public wants to go? Anyone to come and just speak his mind or her mind. Then the second objective is, we are listening to so many of our leaders, many of whom I'm afraid are not so respectable. And some of us look at them and say, he is doing that, he is doing that, and we criticize. But on our part, we are sinking on the fence and criticizing other people. So this occasion is about bringing people who are respected in the communities so that people will get to know you because they respect you. And you get to know other people also. And here we have some of our younger people. They have a lot of things bottled up inside their minds. So I'm not giving them, you speak that or you speak this. But they are here to share some of their concerns. So the first one will be Detono. She was the former Eastern Mirror Nagaland newspaper's editor, and currently she is an advocate for the disabilities. When I see her, I'm reminded of her dad, the personality, the voice, the passion she has after her dad, late Nagami. So the first speaker is Detono Nakhro.
I'm extremely happy to get this opportunity to address this esteemed gathering of leaders, thinkers, and influencers in our society, in the hope that my message will strike a chord and stir your thoughts. So without wasting any time, I will just dive straight in. Let me first ask you a question. Do you ever at any time give any serious thought to how people with disabilities in Nagaland live out their days? To clear up one point before I proceed ahead, it is true that we Nagas as a society, we don't have a culture of mistreating disabled people or abandoning members of a family just because somebody, he or she has a disability or is not as perfect as we would want them to be. Like some cases that we hear about in other societies and things like that. If anything, Naga families can be faulted for being too overprotective and not encouraging self-reliance enough. Having said that, let's get back to the question. What is the quality of life for the disabled in Naga society? Just take a look at the physical environment around you and you will get your answer. People living with disabilities, the disabled community of Nagaland, have no life. How can you have a life when you have no access anywhere? The physical and built environment around you is only one aspect of accessibility, as I'm sure you are all aware. However, the situation in our state is so poor, so bad, that we can only deal with this one basic aspect of accessibility to begin with. Pause a moment and think. How many persons with disability do you encounter in schools, playgrounds, colleges, streets, markets, the churches, and then in the many public events that are held routinely, whether state-sponsored or otherwise, and in the various celebrations, be it now the tribe festival celebrations, which have become so important these days. How many disabled people do you encounter in these kind of places and events? I think your answer would be rarely or even never. And when you do, you usually see them being carried, pushed and pulled like animals, stripped of all their dignity and reduced to exhibition items for curious eyes. For those living with disabilities in our state, in our society, the world is beyond reach. The most ordinary of aspirations, like to go to school, get an education, to go to the fields, to the garden, to work, or worship in church, shop, go out shopping for vegetables or clothes, have a fun day out with friends, or go for an entertainment show, or go and watch a football tournament or something like that, the things that you take for granted. All these things are things, that they can only dream about but never be able to do. And you know what? It's not because they can't, but it is because our society does not allow them. This conclusion may come as a surprise to many of you. Let me explain. Yes, we don't mistreat our disabled members, disabled members of our society. But does that mean that they are treated as equal citizens with equal rights to all the opportunities that you so-called normal people take for granted? The answer to that is a resounding no. And I say that as a person with disability, living the experience in an extremely hostile environment in Nagaland, in the place where I have to live and work. Now, as I said earlier, just take a look at the basic aspect of physical accessibility around you. What are the things that I can do and the places that I can visit? I want to ask you another question as leaders and influencers of our society. Whenever you hold a meeting or a function or a celebration or an event, Has a thought ever occurred to you that there might be disabled persons in our midst, in your midst, in our society who might want to participate too? I think we can safely agree that people living with disabilities are never part of any planning or arrangements yet. It has not even come into the consciousness of our Naga society that disabled people are there who might want to be part of the society, might want to participate socially in Naga life. The reason for this is because our society still views those with disabilities as people who can't. They are still looked upon as the sad, unfortunate citizens who are to be pitied but not included. You may not even be aware that this is the way that you think, but we, people with disabilities, we encounter it at every turn. She is disabled, she can't do this, she can't go there. Oh, we didn't call you because we know the situation that you're in. That's the kind of decisions that are made for me constantly without ever consulting me. And more importantly, without even a single thought of the few simple things that can be done to enable everybody, even in disabled people, to participate in whatever the event might be or whatever program it might be. No discussion is required because the disabled can't. That is the overriding mindset that still rules. For Naga society in general, persons with disabilities continue to be objects of charity in needing welfare assistance to survive. The prevailing attitude is still that they are incapable of participating in or contributing to society. The focus remains on what a person cannot do and never on what he or she can do. And it is because of this prejudiced mindset, this stereotyping, that all areas of life continue to remain inaccessible to us. I have a disability, and believe me, I'll be the first one to admit my physical limitations, which are quite obvious. But that does not make me less able than the person, so-called normal person, sitting next to me. In fact, it may just turn out that I am 5 times or even 10 times more able in all aspects, except in my physical limitations, my difficulty in my mobility. However, despite my ability, I am eventually rendered disabled because of inaccessibility and negative attitudes, which effectively ensure that there are very few things that I can do and even few workplaces that I can go to or events that I can participate in. I am disabled by the long flights of stairs everywhere. There's no accessibility. Uneven and congested areas, lack of toilet amenities. In other words, zero access everywhere. I am disabled by the assumptions and stereotypical notions about persons with disabilities. Conclusions about what I cannot do and places I cannot go to are constantly made by non-disabled people without ever consulting me. I am able, but ultimately I become disabled by the environment and the attitude of the people around me. A politician in a speech recently referred to people living with disabilities several times as the weakest section of society. I have to admit, I don't know what he was actually talking about. But if it's about being economically weak, then disabled people certainly qualify to be in that category. Most are downright paupers, completely dependent on family and other people. Why? Again, let me just ask you to take a look around you at the one basic aspect of physical accessibility. Where is the opportunity for them to go out and get an education, work, and earn? They can. It's not because they can't. They can. But ultimately, they can't because of whatever I've already told you. But if he was talking about the spirit and referring to disabled people as generally weak people who are lesser than supposedly strong, normal people, he can't be more wrong. They are the strongest people that you will ever find. Whether you're born with your disability or acquire it on the way, there are numerous challenges, tough challenges that you have to overcome to figure out how to get around it and to make it work for you in a world that is perceived to belong to people who have all their faculties and all their functions intact. They tackle these challenges, learn to improvise and function around their disabilities, which I'm sure you will admit also is not an easy thing to do. And yet, our world still views them as unable, as weak. Now, there can be no doubt that our government has failed the disabled community over and over again, and they are still failing them. I will not be going into that today. But the responsibility of the government to do justice to all its citizens certainly does not lessen the responsibility of the society at large. And you, as leaders, thinkers, and influencers, are in a powerful position to begin this process of ending the state of complete exclusion that people living with disabilities exist in our society. Disabled people are no different from you. They are people who have strengths and weaknesses the same as you. The only difference is that their area of weakness, be it in their mobility, be it in their sight or hearing or any other disability, this weakness stands out and is visible to others at some point in their interactions, but that does not make them lesser human beings. Let me end with this. What do disabled people want? The answer to that is, they want the same things that you want. Nothing more. They just want a chance to get educated, find rewarding work, lead worthwhile lives, and be valued members of the society. They want to be able to do just as you to be able to go shopping, to go out and eat with family and friends, enjoy a concert, or participate in a celebration, or whatever it is that you do every day, take it for granted. They are not asking for any special privileges. They just want the same opportunities as you to explore their potential and to live a full life. This will happen only when our society starts looking beyond stereotypes, beyond a wheelchair, beyond prosthetic limb, mental health diagnosis, disfigurement, or developmental disability or any other disability, and recognize that people are all very much alike. When you start looking at the person rather than only at the disability, you will discover a huge overlooked resource. You will discover talents and abilities that go far, far beyond any kind of disability. And it's very high time that our society stops treating its disabled citizens as second-class, third-class citizens who don't have a right to, any kind of life. And the change has to come, and the change can and must begin with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ditono. Rather, she is asking us to recognize other people who are wanting to give so much to our society, despite some of their physical limitations. So thank you, Ditono, for encouraging us.
I'd like to thank Reverend Mazie for giving me this opportunity to come and share some of my concerns. Invited a doctor, doctors, when you invited me, I thought the topic was on corruption. So I came really charged up for that. Doctors are considered, this tribe which I belong to, apart from being an Angami, is that it's considered the second most corrupt profession in India, next to the policemen. They say some 68,000 crores, I don't know how they got that figure, but doctors are supposed to be extremely corrupt, 68,000 crores of, scam with the medical profession. So I'm part of that. I'm a beneficiary of corruption. Okay. Now, as we look at our state, Nagaland is one of the smallest states, but as far as corruption is concerned, if you look at the 2008 Transparency International report, it's considered, they rate corruption at various levels, and Nagaland comes as not very high, but alarming. That's even more than high, and it's much higher than even Manipur. So we are the most backward state, compared to other states which have a higher index of corruption, despite our phenomenal resources and small population relative to our land mass. And ever since I was born, I have never known good roads except during the Hornbill Festival. One of the things about corruption is that a lot of people talk about it. And I'm reminded of the King Herod, when John the Baptist told him, Herod, what you're doing is not right. You've taken your husband or your brother's wife, and that's not right. And Herod said, I like this preacher. He speaks the truth. It's very nice listening to this character. Enjoyable listening to him. And that's the kind of thing which I've seen all my life. I've seen a lot of people talk about corruption, and the people who are like that, just like me, will say, oh, I like this preacher. He speaks well. The knowledge of good and evil does not seem to make us do good and avoid evil. Now, who can talk about corruption? Who has the credibility to talk about corruption? Understanding that we are all, in some way beneficiaries of corruption. All of us are tainted. There's no one who's corruption free. So I don't think we can go on a witch hunt and say, let's hunt these fellows. You may knock a few people, but it will not solve the problem. It's permeated our entire society, and you cannot remove it without massive damage. But at the same time, you can do your lokpal and all the kinds of things, RTI, things like that, which are good. That must come in. Legislation has to come in. Various mechanisms have to come in. Yet, it's not going to solve all the problems. But at the same time, we cannot allow it to grow. I believe that there is a structure or anatomy of corruption. When Cain killed Abel and he was chased out, he said, my punishment is very, very massive. But as Cain's generations increased, there was a guy called Lamech. He said, if Cain is going to be avenged 77 times, I'm going to be avenged 70 times 7. The amount of evil just progressed. It just continued. And if we just allow it to be like this, it's going to grow. So, I think all of us are familiar with Edmund Burke's statement saying, the only thing that is necessary for evil to prosper is for good people to keep silent. And therefore, we definitely cannot keep silent. So there is a structure to corruption, and I think we could actually analyze it. It thrives on inequality of power, inequality of knowledge. It thrives on the tolerance of evil. Like I said, we're all beneficiaries of corruption. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. We tolerate each other for all the kinds of wrongdoings because we feel that we will need each other. And therefore we will call people for our functions because we think we will need them, even though we know that they are not right. I think I'm involved with Haga Institute, and we talk a lot about integrity and things like that. And one of the things which I have found out is that it's very difficult to get a speaker who will talk on integrity because all feel very uncomfortable with it. I also realized that once a person his foundations are built on corruption, then you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You cannot undo it easily. You may know that, okay, this is wrong, and yet you'll still continue to do it because, your foundation's already built. So it traps you once you fall into it, or you enter into an alliance with it. So what can we do about it? What can the church do? I think there's a lot that the church can do because, the church, corruption starts from within our churches. We know that so many deacons have been caught doing, embezzling money and things like that. Even in my own, organization and another organization, we recently caught somebody, So just because you're in the church doesn't mean you're sort of infallible or you're okay. We need to I think we can start teaching our children from Sunday school about integrity and about corruption. I think if we don't have the resource people, let's get them to come and start teaching. I think we also need to start correcting our congregation as a team. With humility and grace, but persevere in this. People say, don't judge, lest you be judged. Who are you to judge? Actually that's totally taken out of context. The pastor must judge with a group of people. There is a biblical specified way by which you can judge and correct. And we must use that, because if you do not use that, then you're forfeiting your God-given authority and you're being cowardly. I think we cannot continue to tolerate corruption in our church. Being moderate has got nothing to do with corruption. Paul said, when I come, I will sort out those issues. So even in the New Testament, there was a role for judging. I think we need to have audits within our churches, quarterly audits, and look at the audit report and analyze and see what did the audit say. I think we need to pray for those in authority, not that they will have wisdom, but rather that they will repent. Let's not pray, the government just came into power. Let's pray for wisdom for them, that they will govern wisely. It's a hypocritical prayer. Let's not pray like that. Let's pray in public. We can pray that they will repent, just as we need to repent. I think finally we should not lose hope. I believe I'm an ardent believer in the church. I believe the church can do great things. I think we should not lose hope. If Christians lose hope, then there's really no hope, and we cannot afford to lose hope. I feel that righteous people should not become cynical and sarcastic, because then you lose everything. Righteous people need to pray more and to seek mercy. If we just sit there waiting for things to get better, things will only get worse. So if we must continue fighting this fight with fear and trembling, with the understanding we are just as vulnerable to falling and becoming corrupt ourselves as we talk about corruption. Thank you.
When Dr. Sudevi admit that he belongs to a corrupt profession, people say lawyers are liars. Well, I have 2 points to mention here. One is Lok Ayokta, and the second is backdoor appointment. I would like to begin with a big question as to why the state government is taking so much time to put into place Lok Ayokta in Nagaland, when there is so much of corrupt practices in the state, especially in public sector. Lok Ayokta is to be established in Nagaland so as to punish the corrupt public servants and also amazing will to the known sources of income. The establishment of the institution of Lok Ayokta in the state is to provide clean, transparent, and accountable government of the people. Corruption is anti-national, anti-life, anti-poor, and anti-economic development. Some of the corrupt practices are abuse of power, that is, using position or status to discriminate somebody or gain something from that person. Nepotism is giving jobs to family, relatives, and family members. Favoritism is giving unfair opportunity to friends. Extortion is obtained by force, threat, or unfair means. Bribery is taking money to give people's job, profession, treatment, or dishonestly pursued someone for help through cash. Embezzlement is stealing money or resources that is under one's control. Fraud is making false claims for benefits, etc. Yes, the main objective of Lok Ayokta is to curb the menace of corruption provided in the state. The second point, backdoor appointment. The fight against backdoor appointment is to mete out justice by ensuring equality of appointment in matters of public appointment, enshrined as a fundamental right in Article 16 of the Constitution of India. To many educated, meritorious, qualified, unemployed youths, so as to bring about a positive change in public administration and achieve the goals, ideals laid down in the Constitution. It is also the fight against all those employed who have been appointed or recruited in various departments of the government of Nagaland, bypassing the constitutional scheme of public employment through the modus operandi of illegal, backdoor, contractual, ad hoc, casual, temporary, deputation, irregular, etc. Modes of employment in collusion between the bureaucrats and the politicians. The government of Nagaland, OM number AR/General 2007, dated 13 January 2010, on the subject irregular appointment of government servants by some appointed authorities reveals the naked truth about the most unethical department ethics that has taken a stranghold on governance in the state, which is stated as follows. It has come to the notice of the government that a number of unauthorized appointments have been made by certain heads of department on the eve of their retirement without following the prescribed procedure. Now the government has taken a decision that all those irregular appointments made by them should be immediately cancelled by the concerned administrative heads of department, and also criminal prosecution of the guilty officials be taken up by filing an FIR in the Vigilance Commission, and all payments of pensionary benefits should be withheld till criminal case is disposed of. The apex court of the country reported in several cases such as, number 1, regularization is not and cannot be the mode of recruitment by any state. Any regular appointment made on a post under the state or union without issuing advertisement, inviting applications from eligible candidates, and without holding a proper selection where all eligible candidates get a fair chance to compete would violate the guarantee enshrined under Article 16 of the Constitution. Number 2, a landmark judgment passed by the Guwahati High Court Kohima bench in one of the state of Nagaland cases stated as follows. Appointment made without following appropriate procedure under the rules, holding the field and without advertisement, and without inviting applications from open market would amount to infringement of Article 14 and 16 of the Constitution, and so regularizing a service of the candidate otherwise not appointed by following prescribed procedure would not be valid mode of appointment. The entry of these appointees into the service having been achieved through backdoor cannot acquire any right, and so regularization of the services would amount negating the prescribed procedure at the cause of Article 14 and 16 of the Constitution of India. Even taking recourse to scheme framed under Article 162 of the Constitution to circumvent the procedure prescribed under a statutory rule would be contrary to the constitutional mandate. It is the established law that no regularization is permissible on the strength of a cabinet decision adopted in exercise of power under Article 162 of the Constitution of India, and consequently such regularization is liable to be struck down. Number 4, that adherence to Article 14 and 16 of the Constitution is a must in the process of public employment. As published in local newspaper on 20 November 2015, the Chief Minister T.R. Zealand claimed that not every appointment can be pointed out as backdoor, since due process as required by the rule is followed. The Chief Minister T.R. Zealand has also termed the account PIL on backdoor appointment as improper, stating that when the account took the issue to the court had decided to refer the matter to the union government, and this may take a long time to settle the matter. He also says that the government is alive to rectify the wrongdoing that is detected, and appeal to be a little more patient, give the government time to look into the matter and take corrective measures. As legal self-convener of Account Nagaland, I would like to question what does the Chief Minister T.R. Zealand meant by saying that due process as required by the rules is followed. Does the state government adhere to Article 14 and 16 of the Constitution of India in the process of public employment by way of issuing advertisement, inviting applications from eligible candidates, and holds a proper selection where all eligible candidates get a fair chance to compete? The account filed a public interest litigation on backdoor appointment before the Honorable Guwahati High Court may be improper for Tiaziland, but it may be proper to general public as it involves public welfare. The Chief Minister Tiaziland's statement, the court had decided to refer the matter to the Union government, is misleading, as the Union of India is just implemented as one of the respondents in PL number 11K 2015. No one is stopping the state government to rectify the wrongdoing. Neither the account PL never stay or interfere in this matter. So, the Honorable Chief Minister Tiaziland is most welcome to rectify the wrongdoing, including the backdoor appointment. Thank you. God bless.